Dust swirled in the blistering heat as the stagecoach thundered across the open plains, a fragile vessel in a vast, unforgiving sea of golden grass. Inside, passengers held on, their faces etched with the strain of the journey. But their troubles had only just begun. From the shimmering horizon, a figure emerged, a lone rider silhouetted against the sun. He moved with a chilling certainty, his horse a dark extension of his will. This was Silas, a name whispered in saloons and around campfires, a name synonymous with fear. His approach was swift and brutal. The crack of his pistol echoed, a sharp final sound that sent birds scattering into the sky. The stagecoach driver slumped, and the horses reared in panic. Silas dismounted, his boots crunching on the dry earth. He wasn't a man of many words. His actions spoke a language of pure intimidation. He moved from passenger to passenger, his eyes cold and empty, collecting valuables with a practiced efficiency. One man, a merchant returning home with his life savings, hesitated. It was a fatal mistake. Silas showed no mercy, his gun barking a second time. The man fell, his dreams dissolving into the dust. Silas remounted, his saddlebags heavier, his soul no lighter. He rode away without a backward glance, another ghost left in his wake. He lived by a code of greed and arrogance, a phantom feared across the frontier. A man who took what he wanted and left only sorrow behind. Days turned into a week. The stolen gold was a cold comfort, its gleam failing to warm the growing emptiness within him. Driven by a strange, unfamiliar impulse, Silas rode back toward the town nearest the robbery. He learned the name of the man he'd dispatched so thoughtlessly, a simple farmer named Thomas, whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Curiosity, or perhaps something darker, led Silas to the man's homestead. There he saw her. A young woman, her face a mask of grief, tending to the very land her husband had worked. This was Alara Thomas's widow. He approached cautiously, the architect of her misery, now a silent observer. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but fierce, locking onto his. Recognition dawned, not of his face, but of the cold aura that clung to him like a shroud. She didn't scream or run. Instead, she walked toward him, her hands clenched into fists. "You," she said, her voice shaking with a mix of fury and despair. "You're the one. The one who left me with nothing but this empty house and a field of broken promises." Her words were not pleas for pity, but accusations, sharp as glass. "Ick." Each one struck Silas with a force no bullet ever had. He'd faced down lawmen and rivals, but he had no defense against her raw, unfiltered pain. For the first time in his life, a crack appeared in his hardened exterior. Guilt, a foreign and unwelcome emotion, began to seep in, a slow poison to his callous heart. He saw not a victim, but the consequence of his actions, a life shattered by his greed. Silas found he couldn't leave. He lingered on the outskirts of her farm, a shadow watching from a distance. He told himself it was a foolish curiosity, a morbid fascination with the wreckage he'd caused. He watched her struggle, mending fences, tending to the livestock, her slim figure a testament to sheer determination. Then, trouble of a different kind arrived. A gang of local bandits, vultures circling what they perceived as a weakened target, rode on to her property. They were loud, crude, and saw an easy score in a lone woman. From his hidden vantage point, Silas watched them harass her, trying to intimidate her into giving up her land. An old instinct flared within him, the instinct to take what he wanted. But this time, it was different. He saw not an opportunity, but a violation. He saw them as a grotesque reflection of what he had become. Without a second thought, he spurred his horse forward, emerging from the trees like a wraith. His reputation preceded him. The bandits, recognizing the infamous outlaw, faltered. A tense standoff ensued, a battle of wills more than weapons. "This farm is under my protection," Silas declared, the words feeling strange on his tongue. The bandits, unwilling to challenge a man of his notoriety, begrudgingly retreated, vowing to return. Alara watched, confused and wary. She didn't understand his motives, and frankly, neither did he. He was only just beginning to realize he wasn't just protecting her property. He was protecting her. The uneasy truce didn't last. Silas remained nearby, a reluctant guardian angel with a tarnished halo. He found himself doing small things, leaving a freshly hunted deer near her doorstep, silently mending a broken gate under the cover of night. He never spoke to her, and she never acknowledged his presence, but a silent understanding began to form in the space between them. He was caught in a current he couldn't control, drifting away from the life he knew. His past, however, was not so easily left behind. The bandits, humiliated and hungry for revenge, were not the type to forget. Their leader, a brute named Jed, had a personal score to settle with anyone who crossed him. Word reached Silas through whispers in the wind and the nervous glances of travelers. Jed was gathering his men, more of them this time, angrier and more determined. They weren't just coming for the farm, they were coming for him. The choice was clear and stark. He could ride away, disappear into the frontier as he had done 100 times before, and leave Alara to her fate. It was the smart move, the outlaw's way. Or he could stay. He could stand his ground and face a fight he was likely to lose. All for a woman who looked at him with both fear and a flicker of something else he couldn't name. He looked at the farmhouse, a small beacon of defiance in the vast wilderness, and thought of the woman inside. The decision was no decision at all. He had to stay. We'd fight. The confrontation came at dawn. The air was still and cool, pregnant with impending violence. Jed and his men descended on the farm, their approach a thunder of hooves and shouted threats. But Silas was ready. He had spent the night preparing, turning the familiar landscape of the farm into a series of strategic traps. When the bandits stormed the property, they were met not with a lone woman, but with a calculated, deadly defense. Silas moved like a ghost, using the barn, the fences, the very lay of the land to his advantage. He was outnumbered, but he fought with a ferocity they had never seen, a desperation born not of greed, but of purpose. The fight was a whirlwind of chaos and noise, a brutal dance of survival. One by one, the bandits fell, until only Jed remained. The two men faced each other in the dusty yard, the farmhouse at their backs. It was a classic duel, a showdown between two sides of the same lawless coin. Jed was bigger, stronger, but Silas was faster, driven by a need for something he was just beginning to understand: redemption. He was wounded, his body aching, but his will was iron. With a final decisive move, he defeated Jed, ending the threat for good. He stood victorious, but the cost was written in his own blood. As the dust settled, Alara emerged from the house. She looked at the scene, at the fallen men, and then at Silas, who leaned heavily against a post, clutching his side. He had saved her. He had protected her. But he was still the man who had brought this darkness to her door in the first place. He met her gaze, a silent question passing between them. There were no words that could bridge the chasm his actions had created. With a pained effort, he pulled himself onto his horse. From outlaw to guardian, his redemption was being written in blood and sacrifice. He gave her a final, lingering look, a look that held 1,000 unspoken apologies, and then he turned his horse and began to ride away. Lara watched him go, a solitary figure shrinking against the horizon. She wasn't sure if he was a hero or a villain. Perhaps, she thought, he was simply a man who had lost his way and was finally, painfully, trying to find his way back. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more tales from the frontier.